Evelyn Carter kept her hands buried in the pockets of her thin coat as the Greyhound bus hissed to a stop. The air in Columbus, Ohio, cut straight through the fabric and into her bones. It was the kind of cold that made your teeth ache, the kind that reminded you were still alive whether you felt like it or not. She stepped down carefully, 1 foot at a time, her cane tapping the wet pavement. The station smelled like coffee that had been sitting too long and exhaust that never left. People hurried past her with backpacks and earbuds, eyes forward, bodies tilted into their own deadlines. Evelyn didn't hurry. She couldn't, not after the years. For 5 years, the world had been reduced to one hallway in a care facility outside Dayton. Beige walls, locked doors, a television that was always too loud, a phone that only worked when someone remembered to charge it, visits promised and never kept, letters that never came, a calendar on her wall where the seasons changed outside the window, and inside, nothing did. "You're going home," the nurse had said this morning, like she was reading it off a checklist. Home. The word had turned her stomach in a way she hadn't expected. Home was supposed to be relief. Home was supposed to be the end of waiting. But she'd learned not to trust relief. It didn't last. A volunteer from a church drove her the last few miles. The woman talked softly, like Evelyn might break if her voice got too loud. Evelyn stared out the passenger window instead, watching familiar streets slide by like memories she wasn't sure she was allowed to touch. When they turned onto Maplewood Drive, her fingers tightened around the strap of the old canvas bag on her lap. Her wedding ring, loose on her knuckle, flashed in the weak winter light. Her heart picked up speed, then stumbled. The house came into view, or what was left of it. The white siding was painted a harsh, glossy gray now, like someone had covered its skin. The porch swing was gone. The rose bushes she and her husband had planted the year their daughter was born had been ripped out and replaced with gravel. A new metal fence cut across the yard where her grandkids used to chase fireflies, and on the front lawn staked into the frozen ground was a sign in clean, bold letters: Brookstone Holdings, private property, no trespassing. Evelyn blinked hard, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something kinder. The volunteer slowed the car. Is this the right address, ma'am?" Evelyn couldn't answer. Her throat closed like a fist. The front door opened before the car fully stopped. A man in his 30s stepped out, holding a mug, barefoot in socks like he belonged there. Behind him, through the doorway, Evelyn caught a glimpse of her old hallway. Except the family photos were gone. The framed picture of her and her late husband at Niagara Falls wasn't on the wall anymore. The man looked right at her. Not confused, not surprised, annoyed. He walked down the steps, stopping at the fence as if it was there to protect him from her. "Can I help you?" he called, voice sharp, impatient. Evelyn forced herself to breathe. She opened the car door, the cold hitting her face like a slap. She stood slowly, her knees trembling, and took one step toward the fence. "This is my home," she said, the words scraping out of her like they'd been buried. The man's mouth twitched, almost like a smile, but there was no warmth in it. "No," he said. "It isn't." Evelyn's grip tightened on her cane. Her eyes moved past him, past the doorway, and landed on something that made the world tilt. On the inside wall, right where she used to keep her family calendar, someone had hung a framed certificate. She could read the title even from the sidewalk. Death certificate. Her name was printed beneath it. Evelyn Carter. She felt the blood drain from her face. The street, the fence, the man's voice. Everything went distant, muffled, like she was underwater again. If she was dead on paper, then what had been done in her name, and who had decided she was better off erased? Evelyn didn't remember sitting down, but suddenly she was back in the car, hands shaking in her lap. The volunteer kept asking if she wanted to go to the police. Evelyn couldn't hear the words at first. All she could see was that certificate on the wall, displayed like a trophy. "I'm not dead," Evelyn finally whispered, as if the world needed reminding. The volunteer looked terrified. "Ma'am, that's not possible." Evelyn pressed her forehead to the cold window. The glass smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. It didn't smell like her house. Her house used to smell like cinnamon in the fall, and old books and the motor oil her husband tracked in no matter how many times she told him to wipe his boots. Frank Carter had loved that porch. He'd sit out there after work with a paper plate balanced on his knee, listening to the neighborhood kids, waving at whoever walked by. He was the kind of man people stopped to talk to, even if they didn't know why. He fixed things without making you feel stupid for breaking them. He laughed with his whole body, shoulders bouncing, eyes squeezed shut. They met in high school in a small town outside Pittsburgh, back when Evelyn's hair was dark and her hands didn't ache. Frank asked her to dance at a VFW hall where the floor stuck to your shoes. She said no the first time because she was shy. He asked again anyway. Like her, no was just a pause. They built a life the way working people do, one paycheck at a time. Frank took a job with the city, maintenance and repairs. Evelyn worked as a school secretary for years, the woman who knew every kid's name and every parent's excuse. When their daughter Marissa was born, they painted the nursery pale yellow, not knowing if the baby would be a boy or girl. Frank stayed up all night assembling the crib with a screwdriver and a beer, cursing at the instructions like they'd personally insulted him. Marissa grew up in this very house on Maplewood Drive. Birthday cakes in the kitchen, homework at the dining table, a growth chart on the hallway wall where Frank would press Marissa against the doorframe and mark the year with a pencil. Evelyn kept those little pencil lines. She thought they were proof that time could be tracked and trusted. Then Marissa became a teenager, and time stopped being gentle. There were slammed doors, rules argued like court cases, friends Evelyn didn't know, late nights. Frank tried to be the calm one, the bridge. Evelyn tried to be the structure. Marissa treated both like cages. When Marissa turned 18, she left for Cleveland with a boy who played in a band and talked big about the future. She called home less and less. Frank would pretend he didn't care, but Evelyn caught him standing on the porch some evenings, looking down the street like he could spot their daughter walking back with a suitcase and a smile. She didn't come back. Not really. Years later, after Frank's heart attack, after the funeral, where rain soaked everyone's shoes, Marissa stood beside Evelyn in a black coat that still had the store creases. She cried hard, almost theatrical, but her eyes kept scanning the crowd as if she was counting witnesses. "I'll take care of you now," Marissa said, gripping Evelyn's hands. "You won't be alone." Evelyn wanted to believe her. She needed to. The house felt too quiet without Frank's voice in it. Nights were the worst. She would wake up reaching for his side of the bed, her palm landing on cold sheets, and the loneliness would hit like a physical thing. Marissa moved back into town for a while. At first it seemed like a blessing. She cooked dinner even if it came out of boxes. She drove Evelyn to doctor appointments. She told neighbors how proud she was to look after her mother. But the help came with strings. Small at first, almost invisible. Marissa insisted on being at every appointment. She started answering questions for Evelyn. She managed Evelyn's mail, so you don't get overwhelmed. She said Evelyn didn't need to worry about bills, then asked for Evelyn's banking passwords, just in case. Evelyn told herself this was what family did. She told herself she was lucky. Then, one afternoon, Evelyn came home from the grocery store and found Marissa at the dining table with papers spread out like a gambler's hand. There was a man Evelyn didn't recognize, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up, smiling too wide. "Mom, this is Mr. Talbot," Marissa said quickly. "He's helping us get your affairs organized." Evelyn looked at the papers. She saw her name typed at the top. She saw words like power of attorney and guardianship. Her stomach turned. "I didn't ask for this," Evelyn said. Marissa's smile tightened. "You need it. You forget things." Evelyn stared at her daughter. "I forget where I put my reading glasses, Marissa. I don't forget who I am." Mr. Talbot chuckled like this was a family joke. "Mrs. Carter, this is just protection. Paperwork. Nothing to be upset about." Evelyn's hand went to her wedding ring, a habit when she needed grounding. Frank's voice echoed in her head. "Don't sign anything you don't understand." She pushed the papers back. "I'm not signing." Marissa's eyes flashed. For a second Evelyn saw something underneath the performance. Fear, anger, desperation. Then it disappeared. "Fine," Marissa said, standing so fast her chair scraped. "We'll do this the hard way." That night, Evelyn found her bedroom door locked from the outside, and the next morning an ambulance was at the curb. The paramedic spoke to Marissa first, not Evelyn. Marissa's voice carried through the hallway, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "She's confused," Marissa said. "She's been wandering. She thinks people are stealing from her. She won't take her meds." Evelyn tried to protest, but the words came out tangled. "Fear does that? It knots your tongue." One of the paramedics smiled at her like you smile at a child. "Let's get you checked out," he said. Evelyn looked past them and saw Mrs. Holloway from next door standing on her porch, arms crossed, watching like it was a show. Evelyn wanted to scream, to tell her this wasn't right, that Frank would never have let this happen. But Frank was gone. As the stretcher rolled toward the open ambulance doors, Evelyn caught Marissa's gaze. Her daughter wasn't crying now. She wasn't even pretending. Marissa leaned in close, voice low, almost gentle. "You should have just signed," she whispered. The doors slammed, and the world Evelyn knew disappeared behind tinted glass. The first place they took her was a hospital, bright lights. A wristband snapped around her arm like a verdict. Nurses asked her what day it was, who the president was, what year it was. Evelyn answered, but they kept looking at Marissa for confirmation. Marissa spoke for her with practiced sorrow. "She's been declining," she told the doctor. "She gets scared. She thinks strangers are in the house." Evelyn wanted to laugh at the irony. Strangers were in the house now, and the only person who should have been scared was her. When the doctor recommended a short stay in a rehabilitation center for observation, Evelyn felt relief for a half-second. Short stay meant she could come home. Short stay meant her bed, her kitchen, her porch. Marissa nodded too fast. "Whatever you think is best," she said. That night, Evelyn lay in a narrow bed, listening to another woman cry behind a curtain. The room smelled like antiseptic and microwaved vegetables. Evelyn watched the second hand on the cheap plastic clock above the door and tried to slow her breathing the way Frank used to tell her when she panicked. In the morning, Marissa showed up with a suitcase. "I packed you some things," she said, cheerful, like they were going on vacation. Evelyn sat up. "I'm going home today." Marissa's smile didn't change, but her eyes went flat. "Not today." Evelyn reached for the call button. Marissa took her hand and squeezed hard. "Don't make this harder," Marissa murmured. 2 days later, Evelyn was in a van with tinted windows, driven by a man who didn't talk. They passed familiar exits, then kept going. Ohio fields blurred into gray winter sky. Evelyn asked where they were taking her. The driver didn't answer. She asked again. He turned the radio up. The facility outside Dayton was called Meadow Ridge Wellness and Memory Care. The sign out front had a painted bluebird and a slogan about dignity. Inside, the doors locked automatically. The first weeks were a fog of evaluations and rules. Meals at exact times. Medications handed out in paper cups. Activities that felt like something designed for toddlers. Coloring pages. Chair exercises. Bingo played with numbers screamed into a microphone. Evelyn sat through it all because fighting got you labeled uncooperative. At first, Marissa called. She left messages full of sweetness. "Hi, Mom, just checking in. I love you. I'm proud of you." Then, slowly, the calls stopped. Evelyn told herself Marissa was busy. She told herself her daughter would come. Months went by. Evelyn wrote letters. She asked the front desk for stamps. She asked a nurse to mail them. She never got a reply. She started keeping copies in a shoebox under her bed, the way a woman keeps evidence when she doesn't know who the judge will be. She asked for her phone. They said it was being repaired. She asked again. They said it had been misplaced. One aide, a tired young woman named Claire, whispered to her one evening while helping her put on compression socks. "Your daughter told us you get agitated on the phone," Claire said softly. "She said it triggers you." Evelyn stared at her. My own voice triggers me? Claire's cheeks flushed. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to say anything. The isolation wasn't just loneliness, it was control. Evelyn felt it in the way staff avoided eye contact when she asked about discharge. She felt it in the way her mail arrived already open sometimes, pages missing. She felt it in the way her name became a patient number. She was 71 when she stopped marking the calendar on her wall. There was no point. Her life had become a waiting room. Then, one day, she met someone who changed the shape of her waiting. His name was Thomas Tom Keene. He was a retired electrician with hands like thick rope, and he walked with a limp he joked about as if it was a stubborn pet. They sat near each other in the common room during evening television, because neither of them could stand the daytime chatter. "You got family?" Tom asked one night, eyes on the screen but attention on her. Evelyn hesitated. "A daughter?" Tom snorted. "That's not what I asked." Evelyn felt heat rise in her throat. "I have a daughter," she repeated, harder. Tom nodded slowly. "I got a son. Haven't seen him in 4 years. He tells folks I'm here because I get confused. Funny thing is, I only get confused when I look at paperwork with his name on it." Evelyn's stomach dropped. She looked at Tom, really looked, and saw what she recognized in his eyes, a person being rewritten. Over the next weeks, Tom taught her small things. Which staff were kind, which staff reported everything, how to ask for records, how to file a complaint without getting punished. He had a cousin who worked for a legal aid office in Dayton, and he knew the words that made administrators shift in their chairs. One afternoon, during a craft activity, Tom slid something across the table to Evelyn under a sheet of construction paper, a folded note. She unfolded it in her lap. It was a list, dates, names, a few phone numbers. At the bottom, in shaky handwriting, 4 words that made her pulse jump. "Check the property records." Evelyn's hands trembled. She looked up, but Tom was already watching her, his face serious for once. "They think we're trapped because we're old," he whispered. "But the world still has paper trails." That night Evelyn lay awake listening to the facility settle into its usual quiet. She pulled the shoebox of copied letters from under her bed. At the bottom was the one thing she'd refused to let go of, Frank's old watch, the one he wore every day until the day he died. The leather band was cracked. The glass was scratched. It didn't keep perfect time anymore, but it was real. Evelyn held it in her palm and made herself a promise. If her life had been signed away, she would find the signature, and if her name had been used like a weapon, she would take it back. She just didn't know yet how far the lie went. Evelyn started small. She asked the front desk for her medical file. They gave her a thin stack of papers and acted like it was generous. The pages were full of codes, abbreviations, and notes that didn't sound like her. Patient displays paranoia regarding family intentions. Patient fixates on returning home. Patient becomes emotional when denied phone privileges. Evelyn read those lines until her eyes burned. She could see the author in her mind, a clinician who had met her for 15 minutes, a stranger who thought tears were symptoms instead of evidence. Tom told her not to panic. "Paper can be wrong," he said. "That's why people use it. Looks official." He helped her write a request for a full record. He showed her how to ask for copies of signed documents, admission agreements, consent forms, anything with her name on it. 2 weeks later, an administrator called her into an office that smelled like air freshener and coffee. A framed poster on the wall promised compassion. "We received your requests," the administrator said, sliding a folder across the desk. Her name tag read, Denise. Her voice was pleasant in the way that made Evelyn's skin crawl. "But these matters are handled through your responsible party." "My responsible party is me?" Evelyn said. Denise smiled. "Your daughter is listed as your guardian." Evelyn felt a cold wave move through her chest. "She is not." Denise opened the folder. Inside were copies of documents Evelyn had never seen. A durable power of attorney, a guardianship petition, a medical assessment that declared Evelyn unable to manage finances or make safe decisions independently. Evelyn stared at the signature line. Her name was there, Evelyn Carter, It looked like her handwriting, but not quite. The E was wrong, too stiff. The C in Carter didn't loop the way hers did. It was close enough to fool a tired clerk, close enough to steal a life. "I didn't sign that," Evelyn said, voice shaking. Denise's smile held. "The documents are filed, Mrs. Carter. This facility follows the law." Evelyn leaned forward. "Where did they come from?" Denise's eyes flickered down the page. "Your daughter provided them." Evelyn pushed the folder back. "Then call her. Right now. Put her on speaker. I want to hear her explain it." Denise stood, ending the conversation with her body. "This is not productive. If you have concerns, you can take them up with the court." When Evelyn walked out, her legs felt hollow. She found Tom in the common room. He took one look at her face and nodded like he'd seen this before. "They got paper on you," he said softly. Evelyn sat down, the chair squeaking under her. "They forged my signature." Tom exhaled through his nose. "Then we give them a problem they can't ignore." The next day, Tom's cousin answered the phone at Legal Aid of Western Ohio. Her name was Priya Patel, and her voice was quick and sharp, like she was already moving. Evelyn told her everything, stumbling through dates and names, afraid she sounded crazy. Priya didn't say she sounded crazy. She said, "Do you have copies of the documents?" "Yes," Evelyn breathed. "Good," Priya said. "And do you know if your home is still in your name?" Evelyn swallowed. "I don't know." "Then we start there," Priya replied. "County auditor's website, property deed, taxes. It's public record." Evelyn didn't have a computer, but Tom did. An old tablet his son had dropped off once out of guilt and then disappeared again. Tom brought it to her after dinner, his limp worse from moving too fast. They huddled over the screen like teenagers sneaking something. Tom typed slowly with thick fingers. Evelyn watched the cursor blink, waiting for the world to tell her the truth. Franklin County Auditor. Search by address. Maplewood Drive. The record loaded in a few seconds that felt like hours. Owner. Brookstone Holdings, LLC. Evelyn's breath caught. "That's the sign," Tom scrolled. Transfer date, 18 months ago. Evelyn felt her stomach drop. "But I was here." Tom's voice went tight. "That's the point." Evelyn kept reading. A note in smaller text. A recorded document attached. "Open it," Tom said. Evelyn hesitated, then tapped the link. A scanned PDF filled the screen. The title at the top was stamped in red. Deed Transfer. Underneath, in clean type, it listed the grantor. Evelyn Carter, deceased. Evelyn's vision blurred. "No," she whispered. Tom leaned closer, squinting. "They listed you as dead." Evelyn's hands went numb. Priya had said paper trails. Evelyn hadn't realized the trail could go through her own grave. "How can they do that?" she asked, voice cracked. Tom looked at her with a kind of anger that felt like protection. "Same way they do anything," he said. "They count on you not having the strength to fight back." Evelyn's throat tightened. "I have to go home." Tom shook his head. "Not alone. Not without a plan." As if the facility could sense her rising panic, Denise appeared at Evelyn's table the next morning with a forced smile and an envelope. "Your daughter is here," Denise said. "She requested a meeting." War. Evelyn's heart slammed against her ribs. Marissa hadn't visited in almost 3 years. Not a call, not a letter. And now she was here, suddenly, like a storm. Evelyn stood too fast, dizzy. "Why?" Denise's eyes narrowed slightly. "Because you've been making inquiries." Evelyn clutched the envelope. Her name was printed neatly on the front. No return address. Denise leaned in, her voice low. "Mrs. Carter, please remember your condition. We don't want you getting upset." Evelyn stared at her. "My condition is that I'm being robbed," she said. Denise's smile vanished. "Watch your tone." Evelyn walked down the hallway toward the visiting room, her cane striking the floor like a countdown. Halfway there, she opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a single piece of paper, a photocopy of a death certificate, her name, her date of birth, and a date of death that was 2 years ago. At the bottom, in dark ink, Someone had written 4 words by hand. Stay quiet, or else. Marissa sat in the visiting room as if she'd been there all along. Her hair was styled, makeup perfect, a warm beige sweater that looked expensive without screaming about it. She held a bottle of water in both hands, like a concerned daughter on a brochure. Evelyn stopped in the doorway. For a second, the sight of her daughter hit her with something almost like relief. The body remembers before the mind can stop it. She remembered holding Marissa when she had a fever. She remembered Marissa's small hand slipping into hers, crossing a parking lot. Then she remembered the locked bedroom door. Marissa looked up and smiled. "Mom?" Evelyn didn't sit. "How did you do it?" she asked, voice flat. Marissa blinked, already performing confusion. "Do what?" "Declare me dead," Evelyn said. She slid the photocopied certificate onto the table. Marissa's smile froze. For half a second her eyes darted to the door, to the staff member standing outside, and Evelyn saw it. Calculation. Marissa lowered her voice. "Mom, please, don't start." "Don't start?" Evelyn's hands shook. "I'm looking at a paper that says I died 2 years ago." Marissa's face tightened. "You don't understand." Evelyn leaned forward. "Then explain it." Marissa sighed as if she was the exhausted one. "You were not well. You were paranoid. You were calling the police about imaginary intruders. You were refusing medication. You were endangering yourself." "I was endangering your plan," Evelyn snapped. Marissa's eyes flashed. "You were making it impossible to manage things." Evelyn's voice broke. "Manage what? My life?" Marissa's shoulders rose and fell in a controlled breath. "Do you know how much debt your father left?" Evelyn flinched. "Frank didn't leave debt." Marissa leaned in, eyes sharp. "He did. Medical bills. The mortgage. Repairs you couldn't afford. You were behind, Mom. You just didn't want to see it." Evelyn stared. Part of her wanted to reject it immediately, but another part remembered the bills that had piled up after Frank died, the ones she'd shoved into a drawer because she couldn't face them. She remembered Marissa offering to handle them, waving away Evelyn's questions. Marissa continued, voice softer. "I saved you. I kept you from losing everything." Evelyn's throat burned. "By stealing my house?" Marissa's jaw tightened. "It wasn't stealing, it was restructuring." Evelyn almost laughed. "You talk like a salesman." Marissa's eyes went cold. "Because I had to learn how to survive. You didn't teach me that. You taught me how to be nice." Evelyn felt the sting of that, not because it was true, but because it was cruel. Frank used to say Marissa had a hard shell because she was scared of being small. Evelyn had spent her whole motherhood trying to soften that shell with love. Now it felt like her love had been used as a tool. "You filed papers saying I was dead." Evelyn said again, slower. "That's not survival. That's murder on paper." Marissa's fingers clenched around the water bottle. "You were never supposed to see that." Evelyn's blood went cold. "What?" Marissa's eyes flicked toward the staff member outside again. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Brookstone wanted it clean." "They said if you were listed as deceased, the deed transfer would be simple. No messy guardianship hearings, no public fight." Evelyn's mouth went dry. "Brookstone." Marissa nodded once, barely. "They paid off the mortgage. They paid the back taxes. They gave me enough to breathe again." Evelyn's vision tunneled. "How much?" Marissa swallowed. "Enough." Evelyn slammed her palm on the table, startling herself. "You sold your mother's life for enough?" Marissa flinched, and for a second Evelyn saw fear, real fear, flash across her daughter's face. "It wasn't supposed to hurt you," Marissa whispered. "You were safe here." Evelyn's voice shook. "Safe? I've been buried alive." Marissa's eyes filled, but Evelyn couldn't tell if the tears were guilt or frustration. "You don't know what it's like," she said, "to wake up every day with bills, with pressure, with people judging you, with no one helping. Frank's gone. You think the world cares that I'm drowning?" Evelyn felt something in her chest crack open. "You could have asked," she said, quieter. "You could have told me the truth." Marissa laughed, bitter. "And you would have done what? Sold the house yourself? Given me control? You wouldn't even sign a power of attorney. Because I trusted you less than I trusted paper, Evelyn said. Marissa's face hardened. Then you leave me no choice. Evelyn's stomach dropped. What does that mean? Marissa stood smoothing her sweater. The performance returned, calm and polite. It means you're not going anywhere, Mom. You're medically fragile. You're confused. And if you keep stirring things up, they can adjust your meds. They can keep you comfortable. Evelyn's hands went cold. You wouldn't. Marissa leaned down close, her perfume sharp and expensive. Try me. She walked to the door and spoke sweetly to the staff member. Thank you for letting me visit. I'm so worried about her agitation. Evelyn stared after her, rage and grief tangling in her throat. That evening, Evelyn called Priya from the facility phone while Claire watched the hallway. Evelyn's voice trembled as she read off what she'd learned. Priya went silent for a moment, then said, Okay, we move fast. What do? Evelyn whispered. We file an emergency petition, Priya said. We request an independent evaluation. We challenge guardianship. And we report the fraudulent death certificate. Evelyn's hands shook. They'll stop me. They'll try, Priya said. That's why you need to document everything. Names, dates, witnesses. Keep copies. Evelyn opened her shoebox and pulled out her copied letters, her notes, Tom's list. She tucked Frank's watch into her pocket like armor. The next morning, Tom didn't show up for breakfast. By lunch, Evelyn learned he had been transferred for his own well-being to another facility. No one would tell her where. And when she asked Denise, Denise's smile returned like a blade. You should focus on yourself, Mrs. Carter, Denise said. Other people's problems can be upsetting. Evelyn felt the room tilt. Tom had been her ally, her proof she wasn't crazy. And now he'd been erased like she had. Evelyn walked back to her room and found a new lock on her closet. Her shoebox was still under the bed, but it had been moved. Someone had been in her space. Someone knew she was fighting. The volunteer backed the car out of Maplewood Drive as if the whole street might swallow them. Evelyn stayed turned toward the window, watching the gray house shrink behind the new fence. The man in socks had gone back inside without a second glance, like she was a delivery mistake, already corrected. Ma'am, the volunteer said gently, we should go somewhere safe. Do you have anyone? Evelyn opened her mouth and almost said her daughter. The habit was deep. Family, call family. Instead, she swallowed and shook her head. I have my name, she said. That's what I have. The volunteer drove her to a small church a few miles away, one of those red brick buildings wedged between a laundromat and a pawn shop. The sign out front read, Maple Grove Community Church. The letters were missing in places, like the sign itself had survived something. Inside, the air smelled like old hymnals and burnt coffee. A woman in her 60s, Pastor Dana, met them with tired kindness. She listened without interrupting as Evelyn tried to explain, voice breaking, hands twisting around her cane. Pastor Dana didn't look at her like she was delusional. She looked at her like she was injured. We'll get you warm, Dana said. We'll get you food, and then we'll figure out what comes next. Evelyn sat in a small office with a space heater humming by her feet. Someone brought her chili in a paper bowl. She ate a few bites because her body needed it, even though her mind felt like it was still standing at that fence. Pastor Dana called the non-emergency police line. A patrol officer arrived an hour later, a young man with a clipped voice and a polite face that never fully softened. Evelyn showed him her driver's license. Expired but real. She showed him the address printed on it. She told him her name. She told him she had lived in that house for 38 years. The officer typed on a small tablet. His eyes narrowed slightly as he read. Then he looked up. Ma'am, he said, careful, our system shows the property belongs to Brookstone Holdings, and it lists you as deceased. Evelyn's throat tightened. I'm sitting right here. He nodded, almost embarrassed. I can see that. So fix it, Evelyn said, desperation turning into anger. Arrest someone. They put my name on a death certificate. The officer shifted his weight. That's not something I can handle on the street. You'll need to go through the courts. The courts? Evelyn's voice rose. They used the courts to bury me. Pastor Dana stepped in, soothing. Officer, is there someone who handles fraud, elder abuse? He hesitated, then gave them a card. Adult Protective Services. A number scribbled on the back. Evelyn stared at the card like it was a lifeline made of paper. If you're listening to this right now, take a second during this quiet moment and hit like. It helps stories like this reach people who need them. And if you've ever watched an older person get dismissed or pushed aside, tell me in the comments. Just a few words, so they know they're not alone. After the officer left, Evelyn called Priya from Dana's office phone. Priya's voice sharpened the moment she heard the word deceased. This is serious fraud, Priya said, and it's not just property. If they filed a death certificate, they could have touched your Social Security, your accounts, everything. Evelyn's stomach sank. She hadn't even thought about that. She'd been so focused on the house, on the fence, on Frank's porch swing missing. What do I do? She asked. You need to prove you're alive in official channels, Priya said. Go to the Social Security office. Go to the Bureau of Vital Statistics. We document everything, and we file to correct the record. Evelyn rubbed her temples. I don't have money. Do you have any identification? Priya asked. Evelyn patted her bag. My license, my Medicare card, my marriage certificate is somewhere at the house. Priya went quiet for a beat. Okay, we'll work with what you have. Dana can help you get temporary assistance. But Evelyn, listen to me. Don't go back to that house alone. Brookstone will have security. They may claim you're trespassing. Evelyn's jaw clenched. They stole my home and they'll call me the criminal. That's how this works, Priya said softly. They flip reality until you doubt it. The next morning, Pastor Dana drove Evelyn to the Social Security office in downtown Columbus. The waiting room was packed. People sat with numbers in their hands, eyes tired, shoulders slumped. Evelyn felt like she was back in Meadow-Ridge. Another waiting room, another system. When her number was called, she stepped up to the counter and slid her ID under the glass. The woman behind the window typed, then paused. Her expression changed. Mrs. Carter, the woman said, voice lower now. Our records show you passed away. Evelyn's knees weakened. She gripped the counter. I didn't. The woman blinked, flustered. I'm sorry. We'll need to escalate this. Do you have a death certificate? Evelyn laughed, the sound harsh. Funny you ask. Someone does. One. The supervisor came, then another. Evelyn answered the same questions over and over. Name, date of birth, mother's maiden name, address. They looked at her, looked at the screen, looked back at her as if expecting her to vanish. Finally, the supervisor said, We can flag the record as erroneous, but it will take time. In the meantime, benefits were stopped. We can't release funds until the correction processes. Evelyn's throat burned. So I have nothing. Pastor Dana put a hand on her shoulder. We'll make sure you have what you need. Evelyn swallowed her shame. She hated needing. Frank used to say pride was expensive, and now she understood. On the drive back, Evelyn stared out the window and thought about Marissa, about debt, about Brookstone, about the way the man on her porch had looked at her with annoyance instead of shock, like he had been warned she might show up. That night, in the small guest room behind the church kitchen, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She pulled Frank's watch from her pocket and turned it over in her hands. The backplate was scratched, but she could still see the faint engraving she'd given him years ago. Always come home. Evelyn's eyes filled. I tried, she whispered into the dark. Then her phone, Dana had given her a cheap prepaid one, buzzed for the first time. Unknown number. Evelyn hesitated, then answered. A man's voice came through, calm and cold. Mrs. Carter, he said, like he knew her. Yes, Evelyn whispered. You've been asking questions, the voice said. That's unwise. Evelyn's heart hammered. Who is this? A soft chuckle. Consider this a courtesy. Stay away from Maplewood Drive. Stay out of public offices. Go back to your little facility and let the grown-ups handle things. Evelyn's grip tightened on the phone. You don't get to tell me where to exist. The voice hardened. If you keep pushing, you'll make this worse for your daughter. Evelyn froze. Her anger turned to ice. How do you know where she is? She asked. The line went dead. Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed, breathing hard, the room spinning. They weren't just stealing a house. They were watching her. The next day, Pastor Dana found Evelyn sitting at the kitchen table before dawn, fully dressed, Frank's watch in her hand like a rosary. You didn't sleep, Dana said. Evelyn shook her head. They called me, she whispered. Someone told me to stop. Dana's jaw tightened. Then we don't stop. We just get smarter. Priya set up a meeting that afternoon at her small legal aid office. Evelyn rode with Dana, clutching a folder of everything they had. The photocopied death certificate, the property record printouts, her ID, the few letters she'd kept. Priya was younger than Evelyn's daughter, with tired eyes that looked like they'd seen too many systems chew people up. She shook Evelyn's hand firmly. First thing, Priya said, flipping through the documents. We treat this like a criminal matter and a civil matter at the same time. Fraud, identity theft, elder abuse, and also a quiet title action, guardianship challenge, records correction. Evelyn's head spun. I don't even know what half of that means. Priya nodded. You don't need to. You need to tell the truth consistently. Paper hates consistency. That's how we break it. Priya pointed to the deed transfer PDF. See this notary stamp? Evelyn leaned closer. The stamp was faint but readable. Notary, Lydia Crane. Commission, Ohio. Date, same day as transfer. Priya's pen tapped the name. Notaries are supposed to verify identity. If this is forged, the notary either didn't do their job or did it on purpose. Evelyn's mouth went dry. Can we find her? Priya nodded. We can try. Also, Brookstone Holdings. I looked them up. They're not a local family company. They're part of a web. Multiple LLCs, different addresses, same registered agent. A web, Evelyn repeated. Priya met her eyes. You are not the only one. That sentence landed like a weight and a relief at the same time. Evelyn had been treated like a single problem. An old woman who forgot. Hearing she was part of a pattern made her anger sharper, cleaner. Priya filed reports with Adult Protective Services and the State Attorney General's Consumer Protection Line. She drafted an emergency motion challenging the guardianship. She requested a hearing to correct the death record. And we need witnesses, Priya added. Anyone who can testify you were alive, coherent, trying to reach out. Evelyn thought of Tom. Her chest tightened. My friend, Tom Keene. They transferred him. Priya nodded. If we can locate him, he's valuable. Also, any staff at Meadowridge who saw your condition. That aide who helped you, Claire. Evelyn hesitated. If she helps me, they'll punish her. Priya's voice softened. I know. But this is how these systems survive. They scare the helpers until no one speaks. That evening, Evelyn called the only number she had for Claire. It had been scribbled on the back of a pamphlet months ago during a rare moment when Claire had been brave. Claire answered on the third ring, breathless. Hello? Claire, Evelyn said quickly. It's Evelyn Carter. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. Oh my God, Claire whispered. They said you had an episode and got moved. They declared me dead, Evelyn said. Claire made a sound like she might cry. I knew something was wrong. Denise told us not to talk about you. She said you were dangerous. I need you, Evelyn said, hating how small the words sounded. Just to tell the truth. You saw me. You know I wasn't confused. Claire's voice trembled. If they find out I'm talking to you, I lose my job. Evelyn swallowed. I'm sorry. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't my life. A long pause. I can't testify, Claire said finally, voice breaking. Not yet, but I can tell you something. Evelyn leaned forward. What? Claire lowered her voice. The day Tom got transferred, he got into a fight with a man in a suit. Not staff. Someone from outside. Denise called it a visit from corporate. Tom was yelling. He said, She's not dead, you know. And the man said—" Claire stopped, swallowing. "What did he say?" Evelyn pressed. "He said, 'That's why we used Dayton first. Columbus is next.'" Evelyn's stomach turned. "Dayton first." Claire breathed fast. "And, Evelyn, there was a file. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I was filing paperwork and I saw your name on a list. It had 3 other names under it, all women, all older, different facilities. Same note on the side." "What note?" Evelyn whispered. "Status resolved." Claire's voice cracked. "Like you were a problem they solved." Evelyn's hands went cold. "Do you remember the other names?" Claire whispered them. Evelyn repeated them out loud, forcing her brain to hold on to each syllable like a lifeline. Then Claire said the last thing in a rush. "And Denise has a folder labeled Brookstone. She keeps it in her desk. If you can get that folder, it'll have contacts." Before Evelyn could respond, Claire hung up. Evelyn sat there staring at the silent phone. Dana watched her from across the room, worry deepening. "They're doing this to other women," Evelyn said, voice hollow. Dana nodded. "Then your fight is bigger than your house." Evelyn didn't feel like a hero. She felt like an old woman who could barely keep her hands steady. But she also felt something else. Something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. 2 days later, Priya called with urgency in her voice. "Evelyn, we have a court date," she said. "Emergency hearing. They're trying to finalize a guardianship renewal and lock you into the system permanently. If they win, you lose the right to speak for yourself." Evelyn's mouth went dry. "When?" "Friday morning," Priya said. 3 days. Evelyn looked down at Frank's watch. The second hand ticked like footsteps. Then a knock sounded at the church office door. Pastor Dana opened it to reveal a uniformed deputy holding a stack of papers. "Evelyn Carter?" the deputy asked. Evelyn stood, heart pounding. "You've been served," he said, handing her the documents. At the top, in bold legal type, were words that made her knees weaken. "Petition for involuntary commitment. Filed by Marissa Carter. Reason: delusions and dangerous behavior." Evelyn stared at the pages, her hands shaking so badly the paper rattled. Marissa wasn't just stealing her home. She was coming for her mind. Evelyn read the commitment petition twice, then a third time, like repetition might turn it into a different reality. Every sentence painted her as unstable. Every paragraph treated her anger as sickness. Priya met her that night at the church with a folder of her own. "They're escalating because you're close," Priya said. "They want to discredit you before you speak in front of a judge." Evelyn stared at the papers. "I feel like I'm being punished for noticing." Priya nodded. "That's exactly what this is." They planned for hours. Priya outlined what to say in court. Keep it simple. Keep it factual. Don't let emotions make them write you off. Evelyn listened, but her mind kept flashing back to the framed death certificate on her own wall, hung like a joke. At one point, Pastor Dana brought in a tray of cookies and a pot of coffee. The smell reminded Evelyn of church potlucks back when Frank was alive, when life still felt held together by ordinary kindness. Dana sat with them. "If they try to paint Evelyn as confused," she said, "then we bring people who know her." Evelyn thought of the neighborhood, the years on Maplewood Drive, the block parties, the way she used to watch kids walk to the bus stop from her porch. "Most of them moved," Evelyn said quietly. "Or they stopped looking my way once Marissa told them stories." Priya tapped her pen. "We don't need most. We need 1 or 2 solid witnesses. Someone who can say you were functioning, living independently, and that your daughter had control." Evelyn's chest tightened. "Mrs. Holloway watched them take me away." Dana's eyes narrowed. "Then we go talk to Mrs. Holloway." The next afternoon, Dana drove Evelyn back to Maplewood Drive, but parked 2 streets away. Evelyn's hands shook the whole walk. Each house looked familiar and foreign at the same time, like a childhood photograph with the colors faded. They approached Mrs. Holloway's porch. Evelyn could see movement inside, a television flickering. Dana knocked. Mrs. Holloway opened the door a crack, chain still latched. She looked Evelyn up and down like she was an unexpected bill. "Well?" Mrs. Holloway said, eyes widening. "I'll be." "Hello, Mrs. Holloway," Evelyn said, voice controlled. "I'm alive." Mrs. Holloway's face tightened. "I heard you passed. Marissa said—" "Marissa lied," Evelyn cut in, sharper than she intended. Mrs. Holloway shifted, uncomfortable. "I don't want trouble." "Trouble already happened," Dana said firmly. "We just need the truth." Mrs. Holloway's eyes flicked to the street. People in suits came, took furniture. I didn't like it, but it wasn't my business. Evelyn swallowed anger. "Did you see me that morning, when they took me?" Mrs. Holloway hesitated. Then quietly, "Yes." Evelyn forced herself to keep her voice steady. "Did I look confused?" Mrs. Holloway snorted, almost involuntarily. "You looked furious." Evelyn felt a painful relief. "Will you say that in court?" Mrs. Holloway's mouth tightened again. "I can't. I've got my own problems. My grandson's on probation. If I get involved with police, it gets messy." Dana leaned forward. "This isn't about police. It's about a judge hearing the truth." An elderly woman was erased. Mrs. Holloway stared at Evelyn for a long moment. Something in her expression softened, like a memory she didn't want to own. I can write a statement," she said finally. "No cameras, no news. A statement." Evelyn exhaled a breath she didn't know she was holding. "Thank you." As they turned to leave, Mrs. Holloway called out, "Evelyn?" Evelyn paused. "There's someone else," Mrs. Holloway said, voice lower. "Mr. Jenkins. He used to do maintenance with your husband, retired mailman. He came by when Brookstone trucks were here. He argued with them. He took something before they could throw it out." Evelyn's heart jumped. "What did he take?" Mrs. Holloway shook her head. "He said it belonged to you. He said if you ever showed up again, I should tell you where to find him." Dana and Evelyn found Mr. Jenkins 2 blocks away, in a small ranch house with a flag on the porch. He opened the door before they knocked fully, as if he'd been watching. His hair was white, his back bent, but his eyes were sharp. "Evelyn," he breathed, like he'd been holding that name in his mouth for years. Evelyn's throat tightened. "Walter." He stepped forward and hugged her carefully, like she might vanish. "They told us you were gone," he said, voice rough. "I didn't buy it." Evelyn pulled back, tears burning. "Mrs. Holloway said you took something." Walter nodded and disappeared into the house. He returned carrying a dented metal tin the size of a shoebox. Evelyn recognized it instantly. Frank kept that tin in the garage, on a high shelf, filled with important papers and small keepsakes. He called it the Don't Panic box. Walter set it on the porch and opened it. Inside were old documents wrapped in a plastic bag. Evelyn's original deed, Frank's life insurance paperwork, their marriage certificate. Under those, a stack of photographs, Evelyn and Frank at the county fair, Marissa as a child holding a balloon, the porch swing in the background. And at the bottom, folded carefully, was a letter. Evelyn's hands shook as she opened it. Frank's handwriting, unmistakable, messy, and alive. "Evelyn, if you're reading this, something went wrong. I hope it didn't. I hope you never needed this. But you know me. I like backups. The house is paid off. I used the insurance from Dad's old policy years ago to clear it. I never told you because I wanted you to feel safe, not stressed. The deed is clean. No liens. Don't let anyone scare you with numbers. If anyone ever tries to move you out or take it, fight. Not because it's just wood and nails. Because it's yours. Because you and me built it with our hands and our hours. And if Marissa ever gets lost in her own fear, remember, she's still our kid. But being our kid doesn't give her the right to erase you. Always come home." Frank Evelyn pressed the letter to her chest and sobbed, quiet and shaking. Dana and Walter stood nearby, giving her space, but Evelyn could feel their presence like a circle around her. Frank had left her proof. Not just proof of money, but proof of love. Proof that she wasn't crazy to want what was hers. Priya scanned the documents that night and grinned for the first time since this started. "This is big," she said. "If the house was paid off, Marissa's debt story collapses. That means motive shifts. That means fraud looks even clearer." Evelyn wiped her eyes. It means my husband knew, she whispered. He knew someone might try. Priya nodded. And now we have his words, his documents, his intent. Evelyn felt a flicker of hope. It was small, but it was real. Then, close to midnight, the prepaid phone buzzed again. This time it was a text message, from a number she didn't recognize. It was one sentence. "I can't fix this. They're going to hurt Lily." Evelyn's heart stopped. Lily was Marissa's daughter, Evelyn's granddaughter. The message was signed with one word, Marissa. Evelyn read the text again and again until the words stopped looking like letters and started looking like wounds. Dana found her in the church hallway, clutching the phone with both hands. "What is it?" Dana asked, fear rising. Evelyn could barely speak. "Lily," she whispered. "My granddaughter." Priya called within minutes after Evelyn forwarded the message. "Evelyn," Priya said, urgent. "We have to be careful. This could be manipulation." Evelyn's voice broke. "It's her. It's Marissa. I know her voice even in text. And Lily is real." Priya exhaled. "Okay. We don't ignore it. But we don't run into a trap either." Evelyn stared at Frank's letter on the table. The words always come home underlined by time. She thought of Lily as a little girl, hair in messy pigtails, running through Evelyn's backyard. She remembered Lily sitting on Frank's lap, giggling as he pretended to be a grumpy bear. Evelyn hadn't seen Lily in years, not because she didn't want to, because the door to her life had been locked. Now Lily was inside the lie, whether she knew it or not. Evelyn typed with shaking fingers. "Where are you? Is Lily safe?" No answer. 10 minutes later, a second text came through. "Meet me. Tonight. 9 p.m. Parking lot behind Kroger on Henderson." Priya's voice turned hard when Evelyn told her. "No," she said immediately. "Absolutely not alone." "I have to," Evelyn pleaded. "That's my granddaughter." Priya paused. "Okay, we do it smart. Dana goes with you. And I'm calling a detective I trust. Retired now, but he knows how to watch without making a scene." At 9 o'clock, the Kroger parking lot was half empty, lit by tall lamps that made everything look too bright and too exposed. Evelyn sat in Dana's car, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break her ribs. Dana kept both hands on the steering wheel, eyes scanning. A black SUV rolled in and parked 3 spaces away. The engine stayed running, the driver's window lowered. Marissa sat behind the wheel, face pale, eyes rimmed red. She looked older than Evelyn remembered, as if the years had taken their toll even on the one who caused them. Evelyn got out of the car before Dana could stop her. She walked slowly, cane tapping the asphalt. Marissa stepped out, and for a moment mother and daughter stood under the parking lot, light like strangers at a crime scene. "You came," Marissa said, voice raw. Evelyn's throat tightened. "Where is Lily?" Marissa swallowed. "She's at my apartment. She's asleep." Evelyn stepped closer, forcing herself to see the details. A bruise on Marissa's wrist, yellowing at the edges. A split at the corner of her lip, covered with makeup. "What happened to you?" Evelyn asked, anger and concern colliding. Marissa looked away. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me," Evelyn said, surprised by the truth of it. "Even after everything." Marissa's eyes filled. "That's the problem, Mom. You still love like it's free." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Tell me what they're doing to Lily." Marissa's voice dropped. "Brookstone doesn't want a hearing. They don't want you standing in front of a judge saying you're alive. They're nervous. They've been calling me nonstop." Evelyn felt cold. "Because you're their weak link." Marissa flinched. "Because I signed things." "You forged my signature," Evelyn said. Marissa's shoulders sagged. "Mr. Talbot did. I let him. He said it was just paperwork. He said no one would get hurt. He said you were safer in a facility and the house was a liability and we could start over." Evelyn's chest ached. "Start over with what? My life?" Marissa's voice cracked. "With money, Mom. With breathing room. You don't understand what it's like to be trapped. Rent, bills, credit cards, interest stacking like a wall. I was drowning." Evelyn heard the echoes of the words she'd used in her own life. Mortgage, debt, late fees. Only Marissa had let them turn into a justification. "Did you ever think to ask me?" Evelyn whispered. "To sit at my table and say, 'Mom, I'm scared'?" Marissa laughed bitterly. "You would have told me to be strong, to be responsible, like you always did." Evelyn swallowed. "I would have helped you." Marissa shook her head. "I didn't believe that. I believed what they told me, that you were stubborn and old, and that your house was just an asset waiting to depreciate. They talked like everything was a spreadsheet." Evelyn felt rage rise. "People aren't numbers." Marissa's eyes darted toward the SUV. "Listen," she said quickly, "they want you back in a facility. They're going to try to have you committed. If that happens, I can't protect Lily." Evelyn's stomach tightened. "Protect her from who?" Marissa's voice dropped to a whisper. "From my boyfriend. And from Brookstone's people. They're connected. They use guys like him. They offered him work. Cash under the table." Evelyn felt sick. "You brought Lily into that?" Marissa's face twisted. "I didn't mean to. I thought it was temporary. I thought I could fix it before she noticed." Evelyn's hands trembled on her cane. "Why are you telling me now?" Marissa's voice broke. "Because they hurt me today. They showed up at my door. They said if I didn't stop you, they'd make Lily disappear into the system the way you did." Evelyn's blood ran cold. "They said that." Marissa nodded, tears falling now. "They know I'm weak. They know I'll do anything for my kid." Evelyn felt a sharp, painful clarity. Marissa had done everything for her child, just not in a way that was clean, just not in a way that left Evelyn alive. Dana approached slowly, staying a few steps away but close enough to intervene. Across the lot, a man stood near a shopping cart return, pretending to scroll his phone. Priya's retired detective, watching. Evelyn took a breath. "Marissa," she said, voice steady now, "if you want to protect Lily, you help me tell the truth." Marissa shook her head, panic rising. "I can't. If I testify, they'll destroy me." "They already are," Evelyn said quietly. "They destroyed me first, and now they're coming for Lily. You think staying silent saves you?" Marissa's eyes flicked around, as if expecting someone to jump out. "What do you want me to do?" Evelyn opened Frank's tin box and pulled out the letter copy Priya had made. She held it out, the paper trembling. "Help me end it," Evelyn said. "Not for the house. For the girl who's sleeping in your apartment, thinking the world is safe." Marissa stared at the letter, then at Evelyn. Her face crumpled, like she'd been holding herself together with tension, and now it snapped. "I'll come to court," she whispered. "I'll tell what I know." Evelyn felt a surge of relief so sharp it almost hurt. Then Marissa's phone rang. She looked at the screen, and her face drained of color. "It's him," she whispered. "Who?" Evelyn asked. Marissa's hands shook as she answered, putting it on speaker without thinking. A man's voice came through, low and amused. "Marissa," he said, "you're in a parking lot behind Kroger." "Cute." Evelyn's spine went cold. The voice continued. "Tell your mother to enjoy her little fight. But if she shows up in court on Friday, Lily won't be there when you get home." Marissa made a choking sound. "Don't, please." The man chuckled. "You should have stayed quiet." The call ended. Marissa's knees buckled. Dana caught her before she hit the ground. Evelyn stood frozen, phone buzz still echoing in her ears. They weren't bluffing, and court was in less than 48 hours. Priya didn't sleep that night. Neither did Evelyn. They sat at the church kitchen table with files spread out, phones charging, coffee going cold. Priya made calls to everyone she could reach. The retired detective, Raymond Brooks, checked in every hour. Adult Protective Services promised a callback. The local police took a report, but sounded skeptical, like they were filing it to make it disappear. Evelyn kept seeing the framed death certificate inside her house, like a taunt. She kept hearing the man's voice on speaker. "Lily won't be there when you get home. Maybe we don't go to court." Marissa had sobbed in Dana's car after the call ended. "Maybe we just disappear, move, start over." Evelyn had looked at her daughter's bruised wrist and felt the oldest kind of anger. "That's what they want," Evelyn said. "They want us small. They want us running." Marissa covered her face with her hands. "They'll hurt her, Mom." Evelyn's voice softened. "Then we don't let them touch her." At dawn, Detective Brooks drove with Dana and Evelyn to Marissa's apartment complex on the north side of Columbus. It was a beige building with thin walls and a parking lot full of dents. Brooks moved like he had done this 1,000 times. Quiet, deliberate, scanning for patterns. A woman opened the door to Marissa's unit. Not Marissa. She was in her 20s, hair in a messy bun, wearing a sweatshirt that said, Ohio State. She stared at them with wide eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked. Brooks showed his badge even though he was retired. Something about it still carried weight. "We're looking for Marissa Carter," he said. "Is she here?" The woman hesitated. "She left last night. She said she needed to handle something. She asked me to watch Lily for a few hours." Evelyn's heart jumped. "Where is Lily?" The woman's eyes filled with worry. "She was here. She fell asleep on the couch. Then a man came. He said he was her dad's friend. He said Marissa sent him." Brooks's expression sharpened. "What did he look like?" The woman swallowed. "Tall, tattoos. He had a black hoodie. He didn't look safe." Evelyn felt her knees weaken. "He took her?" The woman nodded, guilt washing over her face. "I'm sorry. He had a photo on his phone with Marissa. He knew Lily's name. I thought it was fine." Evelyn felt her throat close. For a moment, the room tilted and she was back in Meadow Ridge, being told what was fine by strangers. Brooks stepped into action. He asked for the man's phone number if she had it. She didn't. He asked if she remembered the car. She did. "Dark blue pickup," she said. "Old. Rust around the wheel wells." Brooks called it in to a contact at the precinct. "Possible custodial interference?" he said. "Child involved. We need eyes." Marissa arrived 10 minutes later, hair unwashed, face blotchy from crying. She took one look at Evelyn and crumpled. "She's gone," Marissa whispered. Evelyn held her daughter's shoulders. "We find her," she said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "We don't fall apart." Marissa shook, sobbing. "This is my fault." Evelyn wanted to scream yes. She wanted to throw the word fault like a rock. But she saw Lily's face in her mind, small and trusting, and she swallowed her rage. "We don't have time for blame," Evelyn said. "We have time for action." Brooks pulled Marissa aside. "Who would take her?" he asked. Marissa wiped her face. "Derek," she whispered. Evelyn's stomach tightened. "Your boyfriend." Marissa nodded. He's not her father, but he's been around. Lily hates him. He drinks. He gets angry. He said he'd teach her respect. I should have left him. I should have—" Brooks's jaw tightened. "Where would he go?" Marissa stared blankly, then snapped her fingers like a memory bit her. "His brother's house. South Side. Off Parsons Avenue." Brooks looked at Dana. "Stay here with them," he said. Then he looked at Evelyn. "You coming?" Evelyn surprised herself by nodding. "That's my granddaughter." Dana hesitated. "Evelyn—" Evelyn's eyes were hard. "I've been locked up long enough." They drove in Brooks's sedan through morning traffic. Columbus woke up around them like nothing was happening. People bought breakfast sandwiches. Kids waited for buses. Somewhere, an 11-year-old girl was being used as leverage. Brooks pulled up 2 houses down from a narrow brick duplex. The yard was littered with empty cans. A pit bull barked behind a chain-link fence. Evelyn's stomach knotted. Brooks motioned for Evelyn to stay in the car. Evelyn didn't. They approached the door. Brooks knocked hard. A moment later, it opened a crack. Derek stood there, tall, tattoos up his neck, eyes bloodshot. He smiled like he enjoyed fear. "Well, look at this," Derek said, looking past Brooks to Evelyn. "Grandma showed up." Evelyn's hands shook, but she stepped forward. "Where is Lily?" she demanded. Derek shrugged. "She's fine. She's watching cartoons." Evelyn tried to see past him. She caught a glimpse of a small sneaker on the floor, a pink backpack near the couch. Relief and rage surged. Brooks lifted his voice, firm. "Derek, let the child come to the door." Derek laughed. "You a cop?" "Close enough," Brooks said. Derek leaned against the doorframe, blocking the entrance. This is family business. Evelyn's voice rose. You're not family. Derek's smile turned mean. I'm the one who's here, ain't I? Behind him a small voice called, Mom? Evelyn's heart broke open. Lily, she said, voice cracking. Honey, it's Grandma Evelyn. A pause. Then Lily appeared at the edge of the hallway, face pale, eyes wide. She looked at Evelyn like she was seeing a ghost. Grandma, Lily whispered. Evelyn stepped closer, tears burning. Yes, baby, I'm here. Derek's hand shot out and grabbed Lily's arm, yanking her back. Lily flinched. Something in Evelyn snapped. She shoved past Brooks, her cane clattering. She reached for Lily instinctively, like she had when Lily was a toddler about to fall. Derek raised his voice. Back up! Evelyn didn't. She stared Derek down with a fury that surprised even her. I am 74 years old, she said, voice shaking but loud. I have been erased, locked away, declared dead, and I am still standing in front of you. You think I'm scared of you? Derek blinked, thrown off by an old woman who didn't beg. Evelyn took another step. Let her go. Derek tightened his grip. Or what? Evelyn lifted Frank's watch in her hand, the leather band dangling. Or I'd tell the judge everything, she said. And then I tell everyone. And you don't just lose your little cash job. You lose your freedom. Derek's eyes narrowed. Judge? Brooks stepped in, voice cold. There's a hearing Friday, and if this child is harmed, you're going away. That's not a threat. That's math. Derek hesitated. He glanced into the house, towards someone deeper inside. A man's voice called, Who is it? Derek's jaw tightened. He shoved Lily forward like she was a burden. Fine, he snapped. Take her, but tell Marissa she owes me. Lily stumbled toward Evelyn. Evelyn caught her, pulling her into her chest. Lily's body was stiff for a second, then she started shaking, sobbing into Evelyn's coat. Evelyn held her like she was holding time itself. I've got you, she whispered. I've got you. They got Lily back to Dana's church, where a volunteer set up a small cot in the guest room and gave Lily hot chocolate. Lily sat wrapped in a blanket, eyes following Evelyn everywhere like she needed proof she wasn't going to disappear again. Marissa arrived an hour later and collapsed to her knees in front of her daughter. Lily didn't move toward her at first. The distance between them was made of years and secrets. I'm sorry, Marissa cried. I'm so sorry. Lily stared at her, voice quiet and sharp. You said Grandma was dead. Marissa froze. Evelyn felt the words hit her like a slap because she'd never heard it from a child's mouth. She'd never heard how cruel it sounded without legal language around it. Marissa covered her mouth and sobbed harder. I didn't mean... Lily's eyes filled. You lied. You lie all the time. Evelyn sat beside Lily and took her hand. Honey, she said softly, we're going to fix what we can. And we're going to tell the truth where it matters. Priya arrived that evening with a plan. Court tomorrow morning, she said. We go. We bring the documents. We bring Lily to show harm and urgency. And Marissa needs to decide if she's going to testify. Marissa's face was swollen from crying. If I testify, they'll arrest me. Priya nodded. Possibly, but they may offer a deal if you cooperate. And if you don't testify, Brookstone paints your mother as delusional. They win. Marissa looked at Lily, then at Evelyn. Her lips trembled. I'll do it, she whispered. I'll tell them everything. Evelyn's chest tightened with a strange mix of grief and relief. Then Brooks's phone buzzed. He stepped into the hallway, answered, listened, and his face darkened. When he returned, his voice was low. Brookstone's lawyer filed an emergency motion overnight. He said, They're asking the judge to bar Marissa from testifying, claiming she's unstable and coerced. Priya's eyes narrowed. Of course they did. Brooks held up his phone. And there's more. Someone just pulled the fire alarm at Meadow Ridge. The building evacuated. In the chaos, a file cabinet went missing. Evelyn's stomach dropped. The Brookstone folder, she whispered. Brooks nodded. They're cleaning house. Evelyn looked at Lily, small and trembling under the blanket, then at Marissa, broken and terrified. Tomorrow, a judge would decide whether Evelyn was allowed to exist on paper. And somewhere, Brookstone was already erasing evidence before it could speak. Friday morning, the courthouse smelled like old paper and metal detectors. Evelyn had been inside that building before. Jury duty once, a friend's divorce hearing years ago, but today it felt like the place where reality would either be restored or officially stolen. Priya walked beside her with a stack of folders. Pastor Dana carried a quiet steadiness. Detective Brooks stayed a few steps back, scanning like he'd learned to. Marissa arrived last, holding Lily's hand. Lily clutched a stuffed dog and stared straight ahead, jaw tight. Evelyn's chest tightened. Lily looked like Frank when he was trying not to show fear. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Brookstone's attorney stood with two men in suits. One of them was Mr. Talbot. Evelyn recognized the too-wide smile immediately. The hearing started fast. Brookstone's attorney spoke with calm confidence. He described Evelyn as a vulnerable senior suffering cognitive decline. He called her unstable, easily influenced. He said the guardianship existed for her safety and the property transfer was final. Then he said, almost casually, "Mrs. Carter is, unfortunately, deceased in the state record. This matter should be dismissed as a procedural error." The judge, a woman with a tight bun and eyes that missed nothing, raised an eyebrow. "Mrs. Carter appears to be alive," she said. A ripple moved through the room. Priya stood. "Not today," she said. She laid out Evelyn's ID, Medicare records, and a letter from the Social Security office, flagging the death report as erroneous. She presented Frank's original deed documents from the tin box Walter Jenkins had saved, plus proof the mortgage had been paid off years earlier. Then Priya held up the photocopied death certificate mailed to Evelyn at Meadow Ridge. "This document," Priya said, voice steady, "was used to terminate Mrs. Carter's benefits, transfer her property, and silence her. We request immediate correction of the record, dissolution of guardianship, and referral for criminal investigation." It was Evelyn's turn. Priya asked simple questions. Name, date of birth, address. Evelyn answered. Her voice shook at first, then steadied the more she spoke. She described the locked bedroom door, the van with tinted windows, the years in Meadow Ridge without phone access, the moment she saw her home listed under an LLC, the moment she saw her own death on a screen. "I kept thinking," Evelyn said, looking at the judge, "that if I explained it the right way, someone would fix it. But every time I spoke, they wrote it down as a symptom. So I stopped trying to sound calm. I started trying to sound true." Brookstone's attorney tried to cross-examine her into breaking. He asked about medications. He asked if she'd ever been paranoid. He pointed at her tears like they were proof. Evelyn didn't flinch. "I cried," she said simply, "because my life was taken. That's not confusion. That's grief." The judge's voice cut in. "Move on," she said. Then Priya called Marissa. Brookstone's attorney objected, waving his emergency motion. Priya countered. The judge overruled. Marissa took the stand with trembling hands. "I did wrong," she said, "and I'm here because my daughter watched me do it." Lily sat in the front row, holding Evelyn's hand, knuckles white. Marissa told the truth in pieces. She described meeting Mr. Talbot, how he framed everything as help, how he talked about assets and depreciation like it was harmless, how he promised relief from debt and pressure if she let him handle the paperwork. "They said my mom was stubborn," Marissa said, tears falling. "They said if she stayed in control, I'd drown. I believed them. I signed what they put in front of me." The judge's voice turned sharp. "Did you see your mother sign the power of attorney?" Marissa swallowed. "No." "Did you provide documentation listing her as deceased?" the judge asked. Marissa's lips trembled. "Yes." The courtroom went still. Priya held up the deed transfer. "Do you recognize the notary named Lydia Crane?" Marissa nodded. "She met us at a coffee shop. My mom wasn't there. Talbot said it was efficient." Priya turned toward the judge. "Your Honor, this is not a family mistake. It's a method." The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Talbot," she said. "Stand." Talbot rose slowly. "Did you witness Mrs. Carter sign these documents?" the judge asked. Talbot's eyes flicked to Brookstone's attorney. His smile was gone. "I assisted the family," he said. "That's not an answer," the judge said. "Try again." Talbot hesitated. "No," he said finally, voice tight. "Not directly." The judge's gaze hardened. "Then this court has a serious problem." She looked down at her notes, then back up. "I am issuing an immediate temporary restraining order preventing Brookstone Holdings from selling, leasing, or transferring the Maplewood Drive property until this matter is resolved. I am dissolving the guardianship pending independent evaluation, and I am referring this case to the county prosecutor and Adult Protective Services for investigation of fraud and elder exploitation." Evelyn's breath left her body in a rush. For the first time in years, the world shifted toward her instead of away. Outside the courtroom, Marissa crumpled against the wall, shaking. "They're going to arrest me," she whispered. Priya knelt beside her. "They might," she said honestly, "but cooperating matters. And your daughter is alive because you decided to stop." Marissa looked at Lily. Lily didn't run into her arms. She just watched, tired and cautious. Evelyn stepped forward and placed a hand on Marissa's shoulder. "I won't pretend this didn't happen," she said softly, "but I won't let them keep using our family as their cover." A week later, deputies accompanied Evelyn back to Maplewood Drive. Brookstone's tenant stood on the porch again, but this time he didn't look annoyed. He looked nervous. The deputy read him the order. The locks were changed under supervision. The framed death certificate inside the house was taken down and sealed in an evidence bag. Evelyn stood in her hallway, staring at the bare wall where her family photos used to be. The house felt violated, like a body after an assault, but it was still standing. She looked out at the yard, gravel where her roses had been, a fence where her porch swing used to sway. She didn't cry then. Not because she didn't feel it, because she was tired of tears being used as proof against her. Instead, she did something small and stubborn. She found a broom and started sweeping. Dust, dirt, the leftovers of someone else's life. Lily sat on the floor nearby, hugging her stuffed dog. "Grandma," she asked quietly, "are you really alive?" Evelyn set the broom down and took Lily's hand. "Yes," she said, "and you're going to remember this. Not the lie, the truth. The truth is that you don't have to disappear just because someone with money says you should." Lily's eyes filled. "Is Mom going to jail?" Evelyn swallowed. "Your mom is going to face consequences," she said gently, "and she's also going to get help. Both can be true." In the months that followed, investigators began pulling records, tracing notary stamps, and asking hard questions. Evelyn's case opened doors for other names on lists like hers. Evelyn used a small portion of recovered funds and community donations to start a legal support fund through Maple Grove Church. She named it the Always Come Home Fund. On a quiet evening, Evelyn sat on a new porch swing Dana helped her find at a salvage yard. It creaked like the old one. Lily sat beside her doing homework. Marissa, under strict supervision now, was allowed limited visits. Sometimes she sat on the porch too, quiet, listening more than speaking. Healing wasn't a clean ending. It was slow and awkward and real. Evelyn looked down at Frank's watch on her wrist. It still didn't keep perfect time, but it ticked. And this time, no one could write her out of it. If you're still here with me, hit the like button so more people who feel invisible can find this story. Subscribe for more stories where dignity fights back. And in the comments, tell me where you're watching from, because every city name is proof that someone, somewhere, is still listening. Evelyn Carter was declared dead on paper, but the truth, once spoken, has a way of coming home.